Welcome to the Black Sparrow Media Internet Broadcast Network.
You are listening to Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a podcast about Linux, open source, and amateur radio, for everyone. Now here are your hosts, Cheryl, W5MOO, Russ, K5TUX, and Bill, NE4RD.
Well, hello everybody and welcome. You have tuned in to episode number 553 of Linux in the Ham Shack, the most terrific amateur radio podcast on the internet. You have joined us for our short topics episode, so thanks for being here and joining us and hopefully learning a little bit, maybe have a little bit of fun, and, try and make this as interesting as possible. Cheryl is not here again with us tonight, so I'm just going to go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD.
All right, so I guess we have a lead topic tonight, and it's it's a pretty simple one, so I guess I can go ahead and read this, and then you can flesh it out, because I don't know where this came from. There's no citation here.
Oh, yeah, this is just the news mill.
The news mill is grinding away, and it spit out that there have been some new radios unleashed at the Tokyo Ham Fair, one of which is the IC7760, a 200-watt HF 6-meter with remote head that's connected via gigabit Ethernet. Ooh, special. I've heard some people talking about the 7760. It's I kind of gather it's a long-awaited radio. The Yaesu FTX1 was also unleashed. Unleashed. They let it off the leash. It ran around. An all-mode HF 6-meter, 2-meter, 70-centimeter radio, so a lot like the IC7100, but it's a QRP rig. Only 10 watts on the output.
Just like the IC705.
Yeah, the IC705. The Kenwood, yet to be identified, new APRS D-Star compatible new amateur radio car transceiver that the company is currently developing was also unleashed. It announced that, quote, in addition to the data communication system, automatic packet reporting system that has been well received on mobile transceivers such as the TMD710G, which has been used for a long time, this new model also features D-Star. Kenwood with D-Star. That's not the first time, because the ID51A is D-Star.
Well, that's an ICOM, but the THD75 is.
Yeah, I knew there was somewhere in there that Kenwood had already done D-Star. But Kenwood's Japanese too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so not terribly surprising, since D-Star is the, JARL, JARL?
Yes.
Creation.
Yeah, back in the early days, there were several that were actually all D-Star. Then D-Star kind of went away for a little while. Then it came back with ICOMs, basically, taking the lead on it.
Right, and with all the new digital radio stuff out there, of course, everybody wants to be in the digital game. So D-Star experiencing a resurgence. Still haven't done any D-Star on HF yet. I'm told it's possible. I've read those words, but have not actually made it happen yet. So
let's have an HF D-Star net, and we'll prove it wrong. All right, I mean that's it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do that. It's been well received on the new amateur radio handheld transceiver THD75, and is compatible with both APRS and D-Star. So there you go. And several new HTs that were unnamed. Unless Bill wants to flesh out this little bit of the story. Whoops.
Well, no, it seems like we get a new HT every now and then. I think ICOM released a new HT. Obviously, the THD75 they just mentioned was released this year. Don mentioned in the chat room that the TH70D, I think THD74A, the previous model to this HT, also had D-Star. And if most people recall correctly, that was the one that was like a $500 handheld or something like that. Something crazy like that. I don't know. I'm not super excited about this round of radios. The IC 7760 is just kind of the progression of the rig, getting that 200 watt rig back in place, because the last one I think we had was the IC 7700, and that one was out way before they came out with like the 7300 and the 7610 and stuff like that. So the 7700 was kind of already long in the tooth in technology, capabilities and stuff like that, at least, from physical connectivity and stuff like that. Like, it didn't have a USB port, and was rather complex to kind of get everything hooked up. So this is nice that it's upgraded. The thing that I struck me as kind of aged is two things on this 7760. The remote head, so think of it like a Maestro, except for not a Maestro, because you have to have it connected via Ethernet. So it has to have a physical connection into the network. Considering that most people are purely wireless in their homes, I find this probably a late and legacy decision that technical debt sort of just tackled into a new product or something. I don't know. It just seems bad. And the second thing I noticed on the back of it, from at least the pics that were released, that are actually on the ICOM website for the product, is the fact that it has a DVI connector on the back. One of those white fat connectors for a monitor. Why no HDMI? Why no digital port? I mean, HDMI minimally.
I had that same complaint when I talked about getting the IC710. Or not the IC710. Excuse me. Let me just combine two companies. The FT710 from Yaesu, which also has a DVI connector for its external display, which seems ridiculous at this day and age. Why not HDMI?
I mean, considering the availability of those monitors are pretty low. Yes, I know. You can stop yelling at us in the chat. No, you're not even yelling at us in the chat yet, but you can plug a dongle into DVI and go straight to HDMI. Yes, but that gives you HDMI 1.2 compatibility or something like that. Yeah, it's just stupid. I
mean, with the ability to have a much smaller, like a mini or micro HD, or even like DisplayPort or something like that. I mean, I don't understand why they picked basically the largest video connector that's ever existed.
Right. And Steve says because HDMI costs money for licensing is what I've heard, and certainly can't be that much more in the grand scheme. Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. It's like this radio is not priced at a price point where throwing an extra $100 on a license fee or something stupid like that, which I doubt it costs that much. I mean, considering the cost of graphics cards and stuff like that, there can't be that much of a licensing cost for HDMI port. What, maybe $10-15 or something like that per unit?
Yeah, I'm sure they could either pass that along or probably eat it in the grand scheme of things, since they're always into discounts and coupons and everything else. So
yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I'm happy because it's it's cool looking rig. But yeah, those two things just kind of really push me to just scratch my head and question what ICOM is doing from that development perspective. I mean, yeah, you would think minimally it would be a wireless head, wireless screen, even if it had to be in the same network, but you can always trick it with Tailscale and stuff like that. But still, yeah, it's just, silly. I mean, so yeah, you could just, if you have something that could go to Ethernet port, you could still traverse a wireless network. Just a bit ugly. Anyway. The FTX1, I've already heard lots of complaints about this rig. It's basically just a copycat of the IC705. And, a lot of the QRP people are like, I think we're getting excessive on this whole QRP bringing out a fancy rig with all kinds of bells and whistles that probably burns a little bit more battery just because of the bells and whistles and stuff like that. And but yeah, it's a cool looking rig. I got to give them that. They've been being yelled at to replace that 817 and stuff like that for quite a while, and the 816 and 817. So this is a good answer, but is it the answer we all wanted? I don't know. I mean, Yaesu at least is putting out radios at a higher frequency and at a better pace than the other manufacturers. especially Kenwood. So, and then the Kenwood one, oh God, geez, that's all you need is another expensive car FM dual band radio. I thought Yaesu has that covered for expensive radios.
Yeah, with the FTM 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. Yeah, they do seem to have the market on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, apparently Kenwood's playing just a completely different game over there. So anyway, enough about the news stuff. It was really cool, kind of just seeing all the news kind of plop in. I totally forgot that the ham fair was going on, and that we'd start seeing all this stuff sort of pop in. So yeah, it was fun. It was fun, at least kind of reviewing and seeing the early pictures and early gripes and stuff like that.
Yeah, very cool. And nice to talk about it a little bit. It'll be interesting to see where things go and what will be available next time around. So since you didn't pare this down any at all in our first amateur radio topic tonight,
I can take it. Yeah,
I'm gonna let you take care of that one. And I'll do the follow up, because I think the follow up to this one is hilarious when we get done with this story.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So if you have been living under a rock, you know the ARRL has had some issues lately, and they finally put out a report to its members, and I'm just going to read a small segment of it. It's all available online for you to read. And I might interject, as usual, some commentary as I go along here. But as you all know, sometime in early May 2024, ARRL Systems Network was compromised by threat actors, further known as TAs. Save the Tatas. Using information they had purchased on the dark web. Ooh, dark web. The TAs access headquarters on-site systems and most cloud-based systems. They used a wide variety of payloads affecting everything from desktops to laptops to Windows-based and Linux-based servers. Despite the variety of target configurations, the TAs seem to have payload that would host and execute encryption or deletion of network-based IT assets, as well as launch demands for ransom payments for every system. You know, can they just say it was an ESXi issue? They used the exploit. They got in, and they affected all the systems because they're running all of it on, the ESXi, probably an older version that is not patched for the highly documented exploits that are out there. Anyway, because when your admin user group includes the ESXi management console and also all the systems underneath of that, you've already shot yourself in the foot. Anyway, this serious incident was an act of organized crime. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Ransomware. Let's see. Ransom demands by the TAs in exchange for access to their decryption tools were exorbitant. It was clear that they didn't know and didn't care that they had attacked a small 501c3 organization with limited resources. I don't know. I mean, I've seen their annual report. They're not terribly small. The ransom demands were dramatically weakened by the fact that they did not have access to any compromising data. Those QSOs, totally illegitimate. It was also clear that they believed the ARRL had extensive insurance coverage that they would cover a multi-million-dollar ransom payment. After days of tense negotiation and brinksmanship, the ARRL agreed to pay $1 million ransom. Yay. Expect your membership fees to go up next month. That payment, along with the cost of restoration, has largely been covered by our insurance policy. Probably not as much as you think. Today, most systems have been restored and are waiting for interfaces to come back online to interconnect them. While we have been in restoration mode, we have also been working to simplify the infrastructure to the extent possible. We anticipate that it may take another month or two to complete restoration under the new infrastructure guidelines and new standards. A lot of that was omitted for time, and you can go read it yourself over on the ARRL website. Yeah. Having just gone through this with a company, you never pay. It's not worth it. It will never be over.
Yep, absolutely. And in what I believe is rather amusing follow-up story to this fiasco over at the ARRL, They have created an IT advisory committee. Little too late. During its July meeting, the ARRL Board of Directors approved the formation of the ARRL Information Technology Advisory Committee, or ITAC. The committee is charged with overseeing the current ARRL information technology infrastructure disaster, insert in quotes, as well as security of those systems, or insecurity thereof. The board suggested the ARRL Investment Management Committee as a model for ITAC, referencing the desire to engage experts from the field to help oversee IT-related...
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Oversee IT-related tasks. In the spirit of moving quickly, the ITAC is expected to have its initial meeting within 30 days of the July meeting and have a roadmap in place by January. Fun times at the ARRL. At least no one's bored right now. So.
Yeah, so you're probably spending all kinds of money on on consultants and everything else. But
there's another story that, like the ARRL, I didn't put in here, but they're fighting a challenge to the 900 megahertz spectrum right now from a company. And, if they didn't have to spend $1 million on ransomware, that might have been better used for something like that,
Well, mostly paid for by insurance and stuff like that. So,
So they say, yeah. Well, you know what happens when insurance pays, right? Their premiums go up. You know what happens when their premiums go up? Your premiums go up. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the one thing you never want to do to your insurance company is actually have a claim.
Yep.
At least not a frequent claim. Yeah, we'll see how this progresses. I mean, the one thing I kind of didn't care about their restoration on the stuff that they were talking about, and I didn't mention it when we were talking about that article, was the fact that they're trying to simplify the infrastructure to the best extent or to the extent possible. And generally, simplifying things sometimes opens you up to more problems. You end up with several single points of failure. I do like the one place I work for, my main job, and they have everything in so many different places. I don't think anything really talks to each other anyway. So you could come into one place and you'd never even know we had the other 3,000 other places that we stash stuff. But yeah. Hopefully they make it a little bit more complex, like adding firewall. Better firewall prevention techniques in between the data center and their clients that are in the actual offices and stuff like that are connecting to the services as well as to the web, and limit the actual access to everything, including management consoles, unless you're directly connected to either the internal network or the VPN for the data center.
Yeah, it is so inexpensive these days to implement a firewall with Road Warrior VPN access that the fact that it doesn't sound like such a thing was in place is ludicrous. But they have developed the ITAC, and hopefully they'll actually address some of these problems. So,
yeah. Yay, ITAC.
All right. Well, let's enough beating up on the ARRL. Let's move on to some open source, and this was an easy one to read. So, because I actually edit when I put stuff in the Etherpad. So let's see how bad Bill can screw this up.
Sure. Yeah, this is a $149 RISC-V tablet, runs Ubuntu 24.04. Deep Computing has unveiled a new version of its DC Roma RISC-V tablet, and this one runs Ubuntu. The DC Roma RISC-V Pad 2 boasts a 10.1 inch screen that's a 1920 by 1200 IPS 10-point touch display, and is powered by the same Space MIT K1 SoC system on a chip found in their RISC-V Ubuntu laptop. That chip comprises 8 64-bit RISC-V cores running up to 2 gigahertz, plus the RVA22 profile, and 256-bit RVV 1.0 standard to provide powerful AI capabilities. Of course, they had to say AI. You've just ruined the entire story.
I'm sorry, I didn't edit that part out. So it was probably written by AI. That's probably why it's in there.
AI. Oh, great. Okay. And an Imagine Technologies, a BXE-2-2 GPU, a baseline 800 megahertz effort, Memory-wise, the base model offers 4 gigabits of LPDDR4 RAM, 8 gigabit and 16 gigabit options are also available at an extra cost. All versions have 64 gigabit eMMC, but the 16 gigabit variant can also be equipped with 128 gigabit eMMC. Code compiling on a touchscreen keyboard might not be everyone's idea of fun, so the Pad 2 also supports external keyboards and mouse too. The RISC-V computing is a promising field, but sorry, I totally messed it up. I'm skipping lines now. RISC-V computing is a promising field, but best plowed by developers, early adopters, and tech enthusiasts at present. RISC-V chip performance is improving, but it's not there for mainstream adoption yet. While most of us can't afford to drop a few $100s on a device whose performance won't be good enough to do much of what we want, it's important that these kinds of devices are out there. Wow, that's interesting to say. Without reliable and halfway affordable RISC-V hardware for enthusiasts to tinker with, the software side won't mature. Those interested in a RISC-V tablet can pre-order the DC Aroma RISC-V Pad 2 from $149 on the Deep Computing website. Slate's scheduled to start shipping in September, albeit from China, so be aware that import and shipping costs will also apply. And this came to us from OMG Ubuntu.
Yeah, OMG Ubuntu's AI editor. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm sure all press release copy is now generated by AI. So
yes, most definitely.
Which means that this next story is also generated by AI, but we'll read it. We'll be the wetware that actually reads the words. So, recently released is LibreOffice 24.8. It builds on the improvements shipped in LibreOffice 24.2, and they're now doing a release cycle based on the year and month that it is released in. So August 24th, or August of 2024, is 24.8. It rolls up 6 months of development, 5,591 commits. It's like the commit, new commit. Are from 171 developers, 115 of whom are volunteers. These range from bug fixes and security tweaks to UI changes, new features, and ever-important enhancements to interoperability. What's new? LibreOffice 24.8 features a new privacy toggle allowing documents to not save personal data. It also adds password-based encryption for ODF files. The suite's devs say this is more performant, tamper-resistant, higher resistance to brute forcing, and hides metadata to reduce information leaks. Take note, ARRL. I just dropped that up. Okay, the official release notes for this release offer more information on these and other changes, including links to code commits, bug reports, and even some blog posts taking a deep dive on the technical challenges involved in adding them. There are a couple of welcome improvements to the charting feature in LibreOffice. First up, text inside chart titles. Text boxes and shapes can now be formatted using the character dialog. Being able to style text within charts has been a long requested feature, so it's great to see it added. There's also a new pie of pie and bar of pie chart types. These let you break down a specific slice of a pie as either a pie or bar subchart. This is handy when you wish to zone in on a specific subset of data within a bordered data set. Among the many improvements to interoperability with other file formats is an appreciable fix to ensure writer docs retain the default page styles background when saving to docx, and the suite can now import and export OOXML, OOXML, pivot table format definitions. So for the three of you who know what that is, there you go. You can install this update using the LibreOffice PPA. It's also officially available on the Canonical Snap Store and FlatHub. Ubuntu won't backport this new series to its existing supported releases, but it will be available in Ubuntu 24.10 when released in October. For more information and a complete list of the enhancements in this release, check out the links in the show notes. That's the part that I wrote.
Yeah, I was going to actually put the story in there this morning too. I was like, oh, LibreOffice released. It's time for me to update my LibreOffice.
Yeah, time for me to do mine, except I don't do a lot of document work, whether it's presentations or, or Word type stuff, and anything I wind up doing is for work, so I'm pretty much stuck in O365 at this point. So,
yeah, almost everything we have is Office 365, except for, well, some of the stuff that I have running on the side. I am surprised at how well it handles, VBA macros and stuff like that out of the box. So I've always been impressed with how LibreOffice has constantly kind of just been a drop-in replacement. Most people are probably afraid of doing that, but I can attest. Even if you have some ugly VBA code shoved in your documents to do some automation stuff, it does hang in there quite well. And of course, it has its own little also basic engine to run its own native basic backend. Whatever you want to call it, scripting language inside of the applications itself.
Yeah, and I noticed, and back when I used LibreOffice a lot more than I do now, it was always really well designed and kept up well with advancements in Microsoft Office and even in O365, and the compatibility was generally spot on. Sometimes there'd be some minor differences, things you'd have to understand. But for the most part, yeah, if you're using even the Microsoft formats like the XLSX and the DocX and all that stuff, PPTX and all that stuff, it just sort of works. So,
well, that's what's really helped them, because those are all the new open document formats. So those are actual standards.
Right. But even if you're using the older ones, like the regular XLS formats and stuff like that, they still...
Yeah, the old binary ones, yeah.
Yeah, they're still really good about being able to handle those pretty well. I mean, you might get a little, glitch here and there, but they've always done well for the compatibility layer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, our last story in the in the open source section is kind of the opposite of compatibility. This is a Microsoft update breaks dual boot systems. Uh-oh. Linux users running dual boot systems with Windows have reported their devices suddenly failing to boot, displaying a worrying message. Something went seriously wrong. It has since been confirmed that a dodgy security update from Microsoft. Is this like a Microsoft CrowdStrike 2.0 or here, or what's going on? Microsoft was to blame for the problem, which was designed to address, of course, a critical vulnerability, a CVE 2022-2601 as part of the company's monthly patch release. Consequently, those with dual boot systems, machines configured to run both Windows and Linux, found themselves unable to boot into Linux. The update had been rolled out to fix CVE 2022-2601, a critical vulnerability in the Grub bootloader used by many Linux distros. It was identified 2 years ago it could allow hackers to bypass secure boot, a security feature designed to prevent malware from loading during the startup process. The issue has affected multiple popular Linux distros, including Debian, Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Zorin OS, and Puppy Linux. In the hours and days following the faulty update, online forums filled with complaints and frustrated users sharing their temporary solutions, such as disabling secure boot or removing the problematic SBAT policy. However, despite the widespread issues, Microsoft has yet to provide a fix. For now, dual boot users will have to find peace with a temporary fix until Microsoft rolls out an update to the security patch that was 2 years in the making. And that came to us from Tech Radar, and yes, I saw this everywhere, all over Reddit and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where the sources come from. It's just the ones I see first, because I know these stories are everywhere. But I just linked to the Tech Radar one. So, but yeah, fun. I haven't done any updates to Windows or Linux actually in a few days, and might just hold off on that. So,
well, I mean, ever since like WSL, I really have never considered dual booting a Windows Linux box, because I have most of what I need from Linux directly inside of Windows. And then if I want a Linux desktop box, I just run a Linux desktop box. I don't run a Windows box.
Yeah, I mean, on my Windows box, I use WSL as well, but I do have those two newer HP Victus machines, and those came with Windows, and I just left them on there since everything was installed using The bootloader, trying to break blank. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Not. Never mind. The U one.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not helping me out here.
I know. It's so funny. I'm lost too.
UEFI.
UEFI. UFI.
I was trying to get there, and I got there eventually. So yeah. So everything was already loaded with UFI and installing a Debian distribution alongside, not actually Debian, but Manjaro now. Was just easy enough, but I haven't touched anything in a few days, and I'm glad I haven't. So I'm definitely not going to touch anything for a few more. So
yeah,
and that actually just reminded me of something else about Manjaro. Yeah, there was. This is a total aside, but it's kind of Linux in the Ham Shack. So let's move into Linux in the Ham Shack.
And we'll talk about Manjaro.
And we'll talk a little bit about Manjaro. So I was looking around for stories for tonight, and there's a logger that is available for Linux. It, as far as I can tell, is not open source, but it's cross-platform. It's called JLog. I think we have mentioned it in the past, but if you do a search on the Linux and the Ham Shack website, it doesn't come up. So if we did mention it, it was only in passing. And I wanted to test it, but right now my client machines are running Manjaro, and it's only released as a deb or an RPM. So, and I couldn't find any source code for it. So, I mean, obviously, if there was source available, I could have just built it on Manjaro, no problem at all. But I did some, looking around on Reddit, like how do you install a deb or an RPM on Manjaro? And basically all of the answers were, don't do it. You'll have major problems going down the road if you decide to try go down this path. But there's a utility, and again, your mileage may vary and it may void your warranty. But there's a utility for Arch Linux called DebTap, that's it. DEBTAP, which stands for, if I get this right, Debian 2 AUR package, DebTap. And it's supposed to be a thing kind of like what Alien used to do, convert RPMs to debs or debs to RPMs. And this is a thing where you're supposed to take a deb file and make it an AUR package and then allow you to install it with like PA-Mac or whatever. But everyone says it'll cause dependency crisis at some point and don't do it. So I didn't do it. Yes. Yeah. They say that Alien still exists. I know Alien still exists. I've never had a reason to actually use it. As he also says, this is Dave. It's Dave, right? W4DPE. I think that's what his name is.
Dan, I think.
Dan? He'll tell us. He'll tell us who's wrong. And it'll probably be me. He says there's a JLog in Brew, but I definitely did not try this on a Mac. So I wound up testing it in Windows just because that was a lot easier than, trying to go through this thing, and I didn't really want to destroy my Manjaro machine because I actually have been enjoying it. So it's not bad. I mean, maybe we'll talk about JLog more in the future, especially when I learn more about it, find out its open source status and stuff like that. It does have a copyright license, but it also has a lot of subtended licenses for some of the things that are integrated into it, which I think some of them might be GPL, so I'm not sure that the copyright would hold up. That's a whole other thing. It's one of those interfaces to me that's like CQR log that's just like overly complex for the sake of being complex. It's like when you pop up the log entry screen, it's just got so many fields in it. It feels clunky, but this is, again, a very limited assessment. So I'd like to know more about it. I'm going to do some more research, find out if there's any other way to install it, if the source code is available, that kind of thing. And if it's not, if it's just going to be released as, binaries like debs and RPMs, that probably just leave it alone and say that JLog exists if people want to check it out. That's all I really have to say about that.
So I just installed it on my.
It does have a dark mode, which immediately gives it a point in my book.
Yeah, I'm just seeing the highlighted part here. It says unregistered copy.
It's a free registration. You just put in your name and call sign, hit register, and it registers.
Interesting. Yeah. If it weren't running Java, I would say, but yeah. I have instead. I'll stick with Keylog for right now.
Yeah.
But I'll take a look at it. I'll import my log in it and see what it does.
I might take a look at it as well. Just dump an ADIF into it and see what happens. But I'm still sold on Cloud Log, so I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yeah, there's like a different like an updated, or not updated, but like a fork of Cloud Log called Wavelog. Have you seen that one?
I have not seen that one.
Okay. Well, there's something to talk about in the future then. Gonna take a look at that when you have some time.
I definitely will. It sounds like something interesting. I will check it out. The other thing I wanted to mention in here, I didn't put any notes in the Etherpad about it, is just two sites I heard about today called hamopen.org and postopen.org. Both of these are just WordPress sites. They're very basic. There's not a lot of information in them. And both of them, I believe, are run and completely populated by Bruce Perens, K6BP, who is one of the probably biggest and well-known advocates for open source and open hardware, particularly when it comes to amateur radio. The sites are, he's established like a 501c, I think, or at least some other kind of nonprofit to advance the art of open source in ham radio. And he talks about, getting grants from the ARDC and going to like Hamvention and Hamcation and places like that and stuff. So the websites are limited in scope and on the self-serving side as far as Bruce is concerned. It's concerned a little bit with like his speaking expenses and travel expenses and stuff like that. But they are focused on open source in ham radio in the hamopen.org case, and in the postopen.org case, he's talking about what the future of software and hardware is beyond the scope of open source. And maybe these will come to something at some point. I mean, there's nothing really there now, but I just kind of wanted to put it on everyone's radar, and we'll see what becomes of them. I think some of the information on there is fairly dated as well. They do exist, and Bruce Perens is still fighting the good fight, or whatever. What was the thing I saw today about a different kind of not open source, fair source? Have you heard about fair source?
Fair source. That sounds vaguely familiar. Fair source. What is that?
Yeah, there was a story I saw today about it called fair source.
Well, here we'll have the AI give us the overview of this. Fair code can basically be seen as a successor to open source code, where the main difference is in the licensing. Well, duh. A fair source is a model that aims to balance user freedom and developer sustainability. Fair source is intended to allow companies to safely share their core products while also giving developers more control than open source. Fair source licenses are designed to restrict the commercialization of software to its authors while still allowing the software to be paid. Okay. The revenue from the software must then benefit the long-term development support of the software. One example of fair source software license is the Functional Source License, an FSL, which is a non-compete license that can be converted to open source after 2 years.
The article I read basically said, it was a very cynical take on it, but the long and short of it was, the way fair source works is if you create something and it's a piece of junk, then it will remain open source. But if it becomes worth someone's time to develop, then it will be converted to a pay model and monetized.
Isn't that what happens now?
Yeah, but
this is like the open core model of stuff.
I think that only happens in the open source world when software is not copylefted. There are open source models that are not copyleft, like MIT and stuff like that, and BSD and I think Mozilla even, which allow for things to be like forked and monetized, whereas GPL does not. I don't know. I don't know enough about this. I just saw the one story, and I can't really speak to it. But it's another thing that I saw in browsing today.
Gotta love the open market, right? Got to make money from it somehow, right? I understand. Yeah. No more work of passion anymore. Always trying to make the latest, greatest thing to... I mean, I can understand when you're talking about, software. Yeah, how a single developer of a single library could possibly be impacted because, somebody uses their software all of a sudden, and then, there also becomes like a liability or something like that downstream. And it's, strictly open source, or they want to try to buy it and it's open source. So, I'm not sure who this is intended to help.
Yeah, I'm not sure who it's intended to help either. It's apparently something that's in the pipeline, though. So just thought I would bring it up. And what was the last thing? Oh, speaking of like monetization, we can move to our announcements and feedback, because that's where I stuck this. And it has to do with Patreon. Now, we still have two different models for subscriptions to the show. One is to use the PayPal subscription model, and the other is to use Patreon. Now, I personally would prefer that everybody use Patreon, but I understand that not everybody wants to do that, and that's fine. It simplifies my management of our subscribers, and also allows you instant access to the Discord server if you go through Patreon. So there's some benefits there. But other than that, the difference is if you sign up via PayPal, then I have to do some manual things to allow you into the Discord with a subscriber flag and that kind of thing. So it's not that big a deal. However, just recently, Apple has decided that since Patreon is available through the Apple Store, if you're going to sign up with a Patreon creator using the Apple version of Patreon, they're going to charge their fee on top of Patreon's fee. Now, Patreon allowed me as a creator to either opt into that and say, we'll cover the Apple fees when people sign up, or I can opt out of that and say that the consumer who wants to sign up with Patreon will pay the fee. Now, I opted out because we're doing $2 a month, and if I'm paying Patreon's fees and Apple's fees, that's going to take that down to like $1.50. And it's almost not worth it at that point. So what I would say is, if you're going to sign up with Patreon, which I highly encourage you to do if you enjoy the show and like the content and want to help support us, just don't do it with an Apple device. Just do it on your computer or something like that, because then you won't get paid. You won't get hit with that fee.
Don't do it with the app. Do it with the website.
Yeah, just do it with the website. Go to patreon.com and all is well.
The Patreon link that we use is on the website, our website, right?
Yes. I think it's in this, like the support us link. Now I have to go look.
Yeah, it definitely shouldn't link you to an application.
Yeah, there's a link that says support us, and then there's two PayPal links, and then I think it just mentions Patreon. Oh no, there's a link to patreon.com. So yeah, there's a link there.
Okay.
It just goes to the website. Yeah. So just want to let people be aware of that if they want to support us via Patreon. Don't do it through an Apple device. Just go to the website, sign up that way. We'll all be happier. All right. That's all I got, I think.
Yeah. I don't have anything else.
All right. Very good. Well, actually, there was more content in that show than I thought there was going to be. Just rambling about the stuff that I read today probably took up more time than the actual stories. But we do have some new subscribers, supporters, and an actual paid supporter signed up today. I think it might be a move from PayPal to Patreon. I can't remember because the name is like super familiar. But we're going to mention everybody right now, and we'll let Bill do the roll call.
Sure, yeah. And we welcome Steve Jacobs to our Patreon list. Nobody from Facebook joined us. Nobody on X joined us. Nobody on Instagram joined us. But over on Mastodon, we have @DigitalWire and @MCornick. No one on YouTube. Over on Discord, we have Mac Guru joined us. Red Null joined us. LB2EG, Richard has joined us. And on the mailing list, we also have Mac Guru and G0IDS. And tonight on the live chat, we have Don, KB2YSI, Steve, KJ5T, Jill, K1TTZ, Tony, K4XSS, and Dan, W4DPE.
All right. Very good. Well, thanks, everybody, for tuning into this episode. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to sort of fleshing out some of these stories that we talked about in the Linux in the Ham Shack segment as the time goes on and we learn more about things like fair source and and hamopen.org and things like that. More fodder for the future, I guess. And in the meantime, we'll let you get back to whatever it was you were doing. Hope you have a great week, and you'll join us the next time around when we have our 120th, if I'm remembering correctly, edition of The Weekender. So that should be good fun, and we'll talk to you all then. So for now, we're going to sign out of episode number 553 of Linux in the Ham Shack. And for the On Assignment Cheryl, W5MOO, I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD73.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a community-sponsored podcast. Live recordings are Sunday nights at 8 o'clock Central Time. Our homepage can be found at lhspodcast.info. You can support the podcast via Patreon at patreon.com/LHS podcast. We're also on Discord, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube and Mastodon. Contact us via email at info@lhspodcast.info or via voicemail at 190954777469. That's 1909 LHS show. We also have merch. So until next we meet, remember to always heed your hedonism.